Namo Shurangama Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Shurangama Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Namo Shurangama Assembly of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Words for opening a sutra. The unsurpassed, profound, and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds or millions of eons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Sutra of the foremost Shurangama at the Great Buddha Summit concerning the Tathagata's secret cause of cultivation, his certification to the complete meaning and all Bodhisattvas' myriad practices. Volume 4, Part 1. Then Pranamatriyaputra arose from his seat in the midst of the great assembly, uncovered his right shoulder, knelt on his right knee, put his palm together respectfully, and said to the Buddha, "The most virtuous and awe-inspiring World-Honored One has, for the sake of living beings, expounded the primary truths of the Daskam One with remarkable eloquence. The World-Honored One often singles me out as the foremost among speakers of Dharma. But now, when I hear the wonderful and subtle expression of the Dharma, I'm like a deaf person who, at a distance of more than 100 paces, tries to hear a mosquito, which in fact cannot be seen, let alone heard." World-Honored One. Although Ananda and those like him have become enlightened, they have not yet cast out their habits and outflows. We in the assembly have reached the level of no outflows, yet although we have no outflows, we still have doubts about the Dharma we have now heard the Daskam One speak. World-Honored One. If all the sense organs, sense objects, skandhas, places, and realms in all the world are the treasury of Daskam One, originally pure, why do all conditioned appearances, such as the mountains, the rivers, and the great earth, suddenly arise? Moreover, the Daskam One said that earth, water, fire, and wind are by nature perfectly fused, are all pervasive in the Dharma realm, and all are tranquil and everlasting. World-Honored One. If the nature of earth is pervasive, how can it contain water? If the nature of water is pervasive, then fire does not arise. Further, how do you explain that the natures of fire and water can each pervade empty space without displacing one another? World-Honored One. The nature of earth is solid. The nature of emptiness is penetrating. How can they both pervade the Dharma realm? I don't know where this doctrine is leading. I only hope the Daskam One will compassionately explain in order to rend the clouds of confusion in me and among the great assembly. After saying this, he made a full prostration, and respectfully and expectantly awaited the Daskam One's unsurpassed compassionate instruction. The World-Honored One then told Purana and all the arhats in the assembly who had extinguished their outflows and had reached the level of no study. Today, the Daskam One will explain in depth the true supreme meaning within the supreme meaning in order to cause all of you in the assembly who are fixed nature, sound hearers, and those arhats who have not realized the two kinds of emptiness, but are dedicated to the superior vehicle as well as the others, to obtain the place of still extinction, the one vehicle, the true aranya, the proper place of cultivation. Listen attentively, and I will explain it for you. Purna and the others, revering the Buddha's expression of Dharma, listened silently. The Buddha said, Purna, you have asked why in fundamental purity the mountains, the rivers, and the great earth suddenly arise. Have you not often heard the Daskan one expound upon the wonderful light of the enlightened nature and the bright wonder of the fundamental enlightenment? Purna said, Yes, Worn One, I have often heard the Buddha expound upon this subject. The Buddha said, You speak of the light of enlightenment. Is it that the natural light is called enlightenment? Or are you saying that enlightenment is initially without light and that then there is a so-called brightening of the enlightenment? Purna said, If the absence of light is called enlightenment, then there is no light whatever. The Buddha said, If there is no bright enlightenment without light added to it, then it is not enlightenment with it, and it is not light without it. The absence of light is not the still, bright nature of enlightenment either. The nature of enlightenment is essentially bright. It is false for you to make it bright enlightenment. Enlightenment is not something that needs to be made bright, for once that is done, an object is established because of this light. Once an object is falsely set up, you as a false subject come into being. In the midst of what is neither the same nor different, difference blazes forth, and what is different from that difference becomes sameness because of the difference. Once sameness and difference are created, then due to them what is neither the same nor different is further established. This turmoil eventually brings about weariness. Prolonged weariness produces defilement. The combination of this in the murky turbidity creates affliction with respect to wearisome defilement. Arisal is the world. Stillness is emptiness. Emptiness is sameness. The world is difference. What is neither sameness nor difference is the actual conditioned dharmas. The interaction of bright enlightenment and dark emptiness sets them in a perpetual rotation. Thus, there is the pervasiveness of wind which supports the world. Because emptiness produces movement, hardened light sets up a solidity which is the store of metal. Bright enlightenment makes this hardness. Thus, there is the pervasiveness of metal which secures the lens. Obstinate attachment to unenlightened awareness results in the formation of metals, while the vibration of illusory awareness causes wind to rise up. The wind and metal rub together. Thus, there is a light of fire which is changeable by nature. The brightness of the metal produces moisture, and from the light of fire, steam arises. Thus, there is the pervasiveness of water, which encompasses realms in the 10 directions. Fire rises, and water falls, and the combination sets up a solidity. What is wet becomes the oceans and seas. What is dry becomes the continents and islands. Because of this, fire often rises up in the oceans, and on the continents, the streams and rivers ever flow. When the power of water is less than that of fire, high mountains result, so it is that mountain rocks give off sparks when struck and become liquid when melted. When the power of earth is less than that of water, the outcome is grasses and trees, so it is that groves and meadows turn into ashes when burned and wood water when twisted. A falseness is produced with interaction at the seeds, and from these causes and conditions comes the continuity of the world. Moreover, prana, the false brightness, is none other than the mistake of adding light to enlightenment. After the falseness of an object is established, the faculty of understanding cannot transcend it. Due to this cause and condition, hearing does not go beyond sound, and seeing does not surpass form. Forms, smells, tastes, and objects of touch, 6 falsenesses are realized. Because of them, there is division into seeing, sensation, hearing, and knowing. Similar karma binds together. Union and separation bring about transformation. One sees that a bright spot is generated. At the sight of the bright spot, conception comes into being. Differing views produce hatred. Similar views create love. The flow of love becomes a seed, and the conception is drawn into the womb. Intercourse happens with the mutual attraction of similar karma, and so there are the causes and conditions that create the kalala, the arbuda, and the rest. The womb-born, egg-born, moisture-born, and transformation-born come about in response. The egg-born come from thought. The womb-born are due to emotion. The moisture-born arise from union, and transformations occur through separation. Emotion, thought, union, and separation go through further changes, and from all the karma received, one either rises or sinks. From these causes and conditions comes the continuity of living beings. Prana, thought and love become bound together so that people love each other and cannot bear to be apart. As a result, the world has seen an endless succession of births of parents, children, and grandchildren, and the basis for all of this is desire and greed. Greed and love feed on one another until greed becomes insatiable. As a result, in the world, all the sentient beings born of eggs, wombs, moisture, and by transformation tend to devour one another for the nourishment of their bodies, to the extent that their strength permits, and the basis for all of this is killing and greed. A person is a sheep. The sheep dies and becomes a person. The person dies and becomes a sheep, and it goes on that way through 10 births and more. Through death after death and birth after birth, they come back to eat one another. The evil karma becomes innate and exhausts the bonds of the future, and the basis for all of this is stealing and greed. You owe me a life, I have to repay my debt to you. From these causes and conditions, we pass through hundreds of thousands of eons in a sustained cycle of birth and death. You love my mind, I adore your form. From these causes and conditions, we pass through hundreds of thousands of eons in a sustained mutual entanglement. Killing, stealing, and lust are themselves the basic rules. From these causes and conditions comes the continuity of karmic retribution. Therefore, prana, the 3 kinds of upside-down continuity, come from the light which is added to enlightenment. With this false enlightening of the knowing nature, subjective awareness gives rise to objective appearances. Both are born of false views, and from this falseness, the mountains, the rivers, the great earth, and all conditioned appearances unfold themselves in a succession that recurs in endless cycles. Purna said, if this wonderful enlightenment, this basic, miraculous enlightened brightness, which is neither greater than nor less than the mind of the Daskan One, abruptly brings forth the mountains, the rivers, and the great earth, and all conditioned appearances, then, now that the Daskan One has attained the wonderful empty bright enlightenment, will the mountains, the rivers, the great earth, and all conditioned habitual outflows arise again? The Buddha said to Purna, consider, for example, a person who has become confused in a village, mistaking south for north. Is this confusion the result of confusion or of awareness? Purna said, this person's confusion is the result neither of confusion nor of awareness. Why? Confusion is fundamentally baseless. So how could it arise because of confusion? Awareness does not produce confusion, so how could it arise because of awareness? The Buddha said, if a person who is aware points out the way to the person who is in the midst of confusion and makes him aware, then do you suppose, Purna, that once the person is over his confusion, he could lose his sense of direction again in that village? No, wrong one. Purna, the Daskan One's of 10 directions are the same way. Confusion is groundless and ultimately empty in nature. There had basically been no confusion. It merely seemed as if there were confusion and enlightenment. When the delusion about confusion and enlightenment is ended, enlightenment does not give rise to confusion. It is also like a person with an eye ailment who sees flowers in space. If he gets rid of his eye ailment, the flowers in space will disappear. If he were so stupid as to quickly return to the spot where the flowers disappeared and wait for them to reappear, would you consider that person to be stupid or smart? Purna said, originally, there were not any flowers in space. It was through a falseness in the seeing that they were produced and extinguished. To see the disappearance of the flowers in space is already upside down. To wait for them to reappear is sheer madness. Why bother to determine further if such a person is stupid or smart? The Buddha said, since you explain it that way, why do you ask if the wonderful enlightened bright emptiness can once again give rise to the mountains, the rivers, and the great earth? It is like a piece of ore containing gold and a mixture of other metals. Once the pure gold is extracted, it will not become an ore again. It is like a wood that has been burned to ashes. It will not become wood again. The Buddha and Nirvana of all Buddhas, the Daskan Ones, are the same way. Purna, you also asked whether the natures of water and fire would not destroy each other if the natures of earth, water, fire, and wind were all perfectly fused and pervaded the Dharma realm, and whether subtle emptiness and the great earth would not be incompatible if both pervaded the Dharma realm. For example, Purna, the substance of emptiness is not the measure of things, and yet it does not prevent the inclusion of all appearances within it. Do you know the reason why, Purna, the empty space is bright on a sunny day, and dark when the sky is cloudy. It moves when the wind rises up. It is fresh when the sky clears. It is turbid and hazy when the weather is foul. It is obscure when a dust storm breaks out. It casts a bright reflection on a pool of clear water. What do you think of these conditions which come into existence at different places? Are they created from these conditions themselves, or do they find their origin in emptiness? If they arise from those conditions, prana, then on a sunny day, since the sun is bright, all the worlds or 10 directions should take the form of the sun. Then how does it happen that on a sunny day one still sees the round sun in the sky? If emptiness is bright, emptiness itself should shine. How does it happen that when there is a covering of clouds and fog, there is no light in evidence? You should know that brightness is not the sun, is not emptiness, and is not other than the emptiness and the sun. The truly wonderful enlightened brightness is the same way. If your karma finds expression in emptiness, then emptiness will appear. If your karma finds expression in one or another of earth, water, fire, or wind, that one will appear. If your karma finds expression in them all, they will all appear. How can they all appear? Suppose prana, the sun's reflection, appears in a single body of water, and two people gaze at it, both at the same time. Then one person walks east, and the other walks west. Each person, still looking in the water, will see a sun go along with him, one to the east, one to the west, seemingly without there being any fixed direction for the movement of the sun's reflection. You shouldn't belabor the question and say, if there is one sun, how can it follow both people? Since the sun is double, why does only one appear in the sky? This is just to revel in falseness, because it cannot be proved. Contemplate the fundamental falseness of appearances. They are just like flowers that are conjured up in space and produce empty fruit. Why then investigate the meaning of their formation and disappearance? Contemplate the fundamental truth of the nature. It is solely the wonderful enlightened brightness, the wonderful enlightened bright mind. Originally, it is neither water nor fire. Why then ask about incompatibility? Prana, you think that form and emptiness overcome and destroy one another in the cherry of Daskawan. Thus, the cherry of Daskawan accordingly appears to you as form and emptiness throughout the Dharma realm. And so, within it, the wind moves, emptiness is still, the sun is bright, and the clouds are dark. The reason for this lies in the delusion of living beings who have turned their backs on enlightenment and joined with the dust. Thus, the wearisome defilements come into being and mundane appearances exist. With the wonderful brightness that is not extinguished and not produced, I unite with the cherry of Daskawan. Thus, the cherry of Daskawan is the unique and wonderful enlightened brightness which completely illumines the Dharma realm. That is why, within it, the one is limitless. The limitless is one. In the small appears the great. In the great appears the small. Unmoving in the Buddhamanda, yet pervading the 10 directions, my body contains the 10 directions and endless emptiness. On the tip of a single hair appear the lands of the jeweled kings. Sitting in the mote of dust, I turn the great Dharma wheel, destroy the defilements, and unite with enlightenment, so true suchness, the wonderful enlightened bright nature comes into being. The cherry of thus come one is a fundamental, wonderful, perfect mind. It is not the mind, nor emptiness, nor earth, nor water, nor wind, nor fire. It is not the eyes, nor the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, or the mind. It is not form, nor sound, smells, taste, objects of touch, or dharmas. It is not the realm of eye consciousness, nor any other, up to and including the realm of mind consciousness. It is not understanding, nor ignorance, nor the ending of understanding and ignorance, nor any other, up to and including old age and death, and the ending of old age and death. It is not suffering, nor accumulation, nor extinction, nor the way. It is neither knowing nor attaining. It is not Dharma, nor Shila, nor Vyaya, nor Kshanti, nor Dhyana, nor Prajna, nor Paramita, nor any other. It is not the Tathagata, nor the Arhats, nor Samkhya Sambuddhi, nor Parinirvana, nor eternity, nor bliss, nor true self, nor purity. Therefore, it is neither mundane nor transcendental, since the cherry of thus come one is the fundamental brightness of the wonderful mind. It is a mind, it is emptiness, it is earth, it is water, it is wind, it is fire, it is the eyes, it is the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. It is form, it is sounds, smells, tastes, objects of touch, and dharmas. It is the realm of eye consciousness, and so forth up to and including the realm of mind consciousness. It is understanding and ignorance, and the ending of understanding and ignorance, and so forth up to and including old age and death, and the ending of old age and death. It is suffering, it is accumulation, it is extinction, and it is the way. It is knowing and attaining. It is dana, it is shila, it is virya, it is kshanti, it is dhyana, it is prajna, and it is paramita, and so forth up to and including the Tathagata, the Arhats, Samyak Sambuddhi, Parinirvana, eternity, bliss, true self, and purity. It is both mundane and transcendental, since the cherry of thus come one is the wonderful brightness of the fundamental mind. It is apart from is and is not. It is identical with is and is not. How can living beings in the three realms of existence, on the level of worldliness, and the sound hearers, and those enlightened to conditions on the level of transcendence, make suppositions about the supreme Buddha of thus come one with the mind that they know of, or enter the knowledge and vision of the Buddha through the medium of worldly language and expressions? For example, lutes, flutes, and guitars can make wonderful sounds, but if there are no skilled fingers to play them, their music will never come forth. You and all living beings are the same way. The precious, enlightened mind is perfect in everyone. Thus, I press my finger upon it, and the ocean impression emits light. You move your mind, and the wearisome defilements spring up. It is all because you do not diligently seek the unsurpassed enlightened way, but are fond of the lesser vehicle and are satisfied with little attainment. Purna said, I am none due and complete with thus come one's perfect brightness of the precious enlightenment, the true wonder of the pure mind. But long ago I was victimized by false thoughts that have no beginning, and I have long endured the turning wheel of rebirth. Now I have attained the sagely vehicle, but it is not yet ultimate. The Round One has completely extinguished all falseness and obtained wonderful, true eternity. I venture to ask the Zaskan One, why all living beings exist in falseness and conceal their own wonderful brightness, so that they keep drowning in this deluge. The Buddha said to Purna, although you have cast off doubts, you still have not ended residual delusions. I will now employ a wily infant in questioning you. Have you not heard of Yajnadatta in Shravasti, who on impulse one morning held a measure to his face and fell in love with the head in the measure? He gazed at the eyes and eyebrows, but got angry because he could not see his own face. He decided he must be a limit ghost. Having lost all his bearings, he ran madly out. What do you think? Why did this person set out on a mad chase for no reason? Purna said, that person was insane. There's no other reason. The Buddha said, what reason can you give for calling false the wonderful enlightened bright perfection, the fundamentally perfect bright wonder? If there is a reason, then how can you say it is false? All your own false thinking becomes in turn the cause for more. From confusion, you accumulate confusion through kalpa after kalpa. Although the Buddha is aware of it, he cannot counteract it. From such confused causes, the cause of confusion perpetuates itself. When one realizes that confusion has no cause, the falseness becomes baseless. Since it never arose, why would you hope for its extinction? One who obtains Buddhi is like a person who awakens to realize the events of a dream. Even though his mind is awake and clear, he cannot get hold of the things in the dream and physically display them. How much the more is that the case with something that is without a cause and basically non-existent, such as Yajnadatta's situation that day in the city? Was there any reason why he became fearful for his head and went running about? If his madness were suddenly to cease, it would not be that he had obtained his head from some place outside, and so, before his madness ceases, how can his head have been lost? Purna, falseness is the same way. How can it exist? All you need do is not follow discriminations, because none of the three causes arises when the three conditions of the three continuities of the world, living beings, and karmic retribution are cut off. Then the madness of the Yajnadatta in your mind will cease of itself, and just that ceasing is Buddhi. The supreme, pure, bright mind originally pervades the Dharma realm. It is not something obtained from anyone else. Why then labor and toil with measure and joint to cultivate and be certified? This is to be like the person who has a wish-fulfilling pearl sewn in his clothing without realizing it. Thus, he roams abroad in a state of poverty, begging for food and always on the move. Although he is indeed destitute, the pearl is never lost. Suddenly, a wise person shows him the pearl. All his wishes are fulfilled. He obtains great wealth, and he realizes that the pearl did not come from somewhere outside. Ananda then bowed at the Buddha's feet, arose in the great assembly, and said to the Buddha, "The Well-Honored One now explains that when the three conditions of the karma of killing, stealing, and lust are cut off, the three causes for them do not arise. Then the madness of Yajnadatta in the mind ceases of itself. and just that ceasing is Buddhi. It is not something obtained from anyone else. These clearly are causes and conditions. Why then does the Daskawan abruptly reject causes and conditions? It was through causes and conditions that my mind became enlightened, one-on-one, and that is not only true of us who are young in years, of us sound hearers who still have to study. Mahamogayayana, Shariputra, and Subhuti, who are now in this assembly and who followed the elder Brahmins, became enlightened and obtained the state of no outflows upon hearing the Buddha expound upon causes and conditions. Now you see that Buddhi does not come from causes and conditions, so the spontaneity that Mashkari, Goshaliputra, and others advocated in Rajagriha then becomes the primary meaning. I only hope you will let fall great compassion and break through my confusion. The Buddha said to Ananda, "Let us take the case of Yajnadatta in the city. If the causes and conditions of his madness cease, the nature that is not mad will spontaneously come forth. The entire principle of spontaneity and causes and conditions is nothing more than that." Ananda, Yajnadatta's head was spontaneously there. It was a spontaneous part of him. There was never a time when it was not. Why then did he suddenly fear that he had no head and start running about madly? If he naturally had a head and went mad due to causes and conditions, would it not be just as natural for him to lose his head due to causes and conditions? Basically, his head was not lost. The madness and fear arose from falseness. There was never any change that took place. Why then labor the point about causes and conditions? If the madness were spontaneous, the madness and fear would be fundamental. Before he went mad, then where was his madness hidden? If the madness were not spontaneous, and his head were in fact not lost, why did he run about in a state of madness? If you realize that you have a head and recognize the madness of your pursuit, then both spontaneity and causes and conditions become idle theories. That is why I say that the three conditions ceasing to be is itself the Buddhi mind. The Buddhi mind being produced and the mind subject to production and extinctions being extinguished is simply production and extinction. The ending of both production and extinction is a effortless way. If there is spontaneity, then clearly it must be that the thought of spontaneity arises and the mind subject to production and extinction ceases, that then is still production and extinction. To call the lack of production and extinction spontaneity is the same as to say that the single substance formed by the combination of all mundane appearances is a mixed and united essence, and that whatever is not mixed and united is basically spontaneous in nature. When spontaneity is devoid of spontaneity, and mixing and uniting are devoid of their unifying quality, so that spontaneity and unity alike are abandoned, and both the abandonment of them and their existence cease to be, that is no idle theory. Buddhi and Nirvana are still so far away that you must undoubtedly pass through kalpas of bitterness and diligence before you cultivate them and are certified. You can hold in memory the 12 divisions of the sutra spoken by the Buddhas of 10 directions and their pure, wonderful principles, as many as the sands of the river Ganges, but it only aids your idle theorizing. You can discuss causes and conditions and spontaneity and understand them perfectly clearly, and people in the world refer to you as the one foremost in learning. You have spent eons upon eons saturating yourself with learning, yet you could not avoid the difficulty of Matangi. Why did you have to wait for me to use the spiritual mantra of the Buddha's summit? The fire of lust in Matangi's daughter's heart died instantly, and she attained the position of an anagami. Now she is one of a vigorous group in my Dharma assembly. The river of love dried up in her, and she was able to set you free. Therefore, Ananda, your ability to keep in mind the Daskhavan's wonderful secret teachings of eon after eon is not as good as a single day of no outflow cultivation, that is, intent upon getting far away from the two worldly sufferings of love and hate. In Matangi's daughter, a former prostitute, love and desire were dispelled by the spiritual power of the mantra. Now her name in Dharma is Bhikshuni nature. She and Rahula's mother, Yashodhara, both became aware of their past causes and knew that for many kalpas they had endured the suffering of greed and love. Because they single-mindedly became permeated with the cultivation of the goodness of no outflows, they were both freed from their bonds and received predictions. Why then do you cheat yourself and still remain caught up in looking and listening? When Ananda and the great assembly heard the Buddha's instruction, their doubts and delusion were dispelled, their minds awakened to the actual appearance. They experienced light ease both physically and mentally, and they obtained what they had never had before. Once again, he wept, bowed at the Buddha's feet, knelt on both knees, placed his palm together, and said to the Buddha, "The unsurpassed, great, compassionate, pure, and precious King has instructed me well, so that by means of these various causes and conditions, expedients and encouragements, all of us who were immersed in the sea of suffering have escaped it." World Honored One, having heard the sound of Dharma like this, I know that the chariot of Daskhavan, the wonderful, enlightened, bright mind, pervades the 10 directions and includes the Daskhavan, the land of 10 directions, and the pure, precious adornments of the land of the wonderfully enlightened King. Yet, the Daskhavan once again admonishes that erudition is of no merit and is not as good as cultivation. So now I'm like a wanderer who suddenly encounters a reigning king who bestows upon him an elegant house. He has obtained a mansion, but there needs to be a door in order for him to enter it. I only hope the Daskhavan will not withhold his great compassion in instructing those of us in the assembly who are covered over by darkness, so that we may renounce the small vehicle and attain at last the Daskhavan's nirvana without residue, the fundamental path of resolve, and that he will enable those who still must study to know now how to subdue the age-old seeking of advantage from conditions, to obtain dharana, and to enter into the knowledge and vision of the Buddha. Having said this, he made a full prostration, and together with the members of the assembly, he single-mindedly awaited the Buddha's compassionate instruction. The World-Honored One then took pity on the sun-hearers and the conditioned enlightened ones in the assembly, all those who were not yet at ease with the Buddha mind, and on all living beings to come after the Buddha's extinction during the Dharma ending age. He revealed the wonderful path of cultivation of the unsurpassed vehicle. Words of transference of merit. May the merit and virtue accrued from this work adorn the Buddha's pure lands, repaying 4 kinds of kindness above and aiding those suffering in the path below. May those who see and hear this all bring forth the result for Buddha, and when this retribution body is over, be born together in ultimate bliss. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. Namo Amitabha. You have lost your true nature and conduct yourselves in upside-down ways. Having lost your true nature and mind, you recognize objects as yourself, and it is you who cling to the flowing and turning of the revolving wheel. You have lost your true nature and conduct yourselves in upside-down ways. Having lost your true nature and mind, you recognize objects as yourself, and it is you who cling to the flowing and turning of the revolving wheel. You have lost your true nature and conduct yourselves in upside-down ways. Having lost your true nature and mind, you recognize objects as yourself, and it is you who cling to the flowing and turning of the revolving wheel.